Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our Criminal Record Season 1, Episode 8, the finale reaction and review. Oh my gosh, guys, it's over. Oh, what a surprise. Daniel Haggerty is not going to be punished nearly as much as he should have been. Who saw that coming?
No, he's not really punished at all. However, that cliffhanger of sort of like, oh, he's put out all his secrets. He's given over the tape with the pen. It's all out there. To have that very last scene where June is realizing that he has not come clean about everything. He did not come clean about that whole situation that was going on with Patrick as a kid, that he was just repeating a phrase that he saw on the TV and that it wasn't actually anything was crazy. They have set up a season 2 beautifully
Yeah.
if they decide to bring this show back, because it's very much going to be June versus Daniel.
So, a lot of times with TV shows, there is the idea behind the show, and then there's the execution of the show, how you execute that idea. And I think broadly, as we get into a discussion here, I will say the idea of Criminal Record, and in particular, that cliffhanger you just mentioned, like we're getting into solid like B plus, A minus material there.
Yep.
However, when it comes to execution in this finale, that's where I'm going to like a C or a C minus territory. And that
Oh.
this show had a lot of really excellent stuff that it did. Like, I
Mhm.
think the performances were top notch. And it's just like, this is my general statement coming out of it, is that you guys need to have a little bit more confidence in your story. I think a lot of the conversations we could be having in this video are also kind of undermined by what they actually put on the show in terms of the scenes and in terms of the writing.
Yeah, a lot of this show could have been helped by cutting out some of the side stories that were going on, like June's husband and some of that. Like, it all could have gotten really trimmed down. Like that final scene with June
Yeah.
figuring out everything that happened with Daniel and the scenes with June and Daniel, they made the show. They
Yeah.
really did. But there was too many things going on, too many characters, too many sort of side stories, what's going on with June at her work and whatever, and her boss. And it's just
Yeah.
like, stop it. Just focus in on what is going on. And this show would have been like, yeah, solid all the way through.
Well, we'll get forward here and talk all about what worked, what didn't in this finale. But go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you guys are still in the mood for mysteries. We are also covering Death and Other Details
Yeah.
on Hulu. There's a little bit still to go in that big whodunit.
Who killed Adelaide? Let's talk about that,
Yeah.
because, there's a lot of shows out there, mystery shows. We're big mystery show people. If you've been at the channel for a while, you know that that's like, our favorite thing to cover, right? Who did it? Who's behind it? There was no way that we could have figured out that Stefan was the person behind this, because Stefan hasn't been on the show. And there have been some people out there that were kind of like, oh, this boyfriend that really killed her was protected. So it's like, okay, that's only a handful of people, and a lot of people, they were like, oh, well, then it must be a CI. Okay, that's what it turned out to be, a CI, someone that no one on the show, we haven't seen. We don't know who he is. And for me, I lean more towards mysteries and murder mysteries where I have a chance to figure it out. And while it's like, okay, we can figure out that it's either, a CI or a police officer, there's not a lot of other protected people in the circle that they're running in. It's still like, but we can't really watch the show and be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. It was June's husband all along. Like, there was no real moment like that when they were just like, it's Stefan. I'm like, who's Stefan?
It's true. This is a situation here where I think they must have just been sort of thinking, okay, if we can explain how this happened, how we got to this point, that maybe it doesn't matter as much that people couldn't figure it out along the way. And I was like, I guess that works fine. I think it would be more fun story-wise if it's like you just explained, where we could have fit a little bit more of the pieces together. I think the motive here and what has sort of been established, and it's across multiple fronts, is that we have Stefan, clearly, who is a very, very bad guy, who obviously it ties all back into this idea of him being protected, nobody can really go after him because he's needed. And even in this conversation with Tony, we get this sort of sense that, Stefan could have been committing even more heinous crimes than what he was doing. And Tony still wouldn't have had an interest in turning this guy in because he was just sort of like the results that I'm getting with him as my informant. They are so good that I can ignore a lot of other things. I'm doing a net positive for the world. If that makes you sleep at night, Tony, I'm not even going to applaud you for that because you just suck as a human being.
Tony is the absolute worst.
Yeah.
He basically got away with everything that he did. Everything with Doris, like just across the board. He got away with so much. And I mean, I know that happens in life and it happened on the show, but it's disappointing in life and it's disappointing to watch on the show. But I mean, the show is supposed to be more, mirrored into reality. So, do people get away with things? Sure. Do people in power get away with things? Definitely. It happens all the time. So, am I surprised Tony got away with some of the stuff that he did? No, but it would have been nice to see him sort of get more just desserts than like, you're probably not working anymore. Oh, noes.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're basically getting a slap on the wrist given everything that you sort of did here.
You killed Doris.
Yeah. Like the message of this show really seems to be in a lot of ways that, okay, this person may have been the killer of Adelaide Burrows, but you look around and you sort of see all these other people who are clearly complicit in everything that happened, including Tony, everything he did, including Daniel to some extent. We'll get more into Daniel in a minute. And then including Kim Cardwell, who's just like making some sort of phone call right before Daniel and Stefan Ash even hit the road.
Okay, listen. Okay, let's talk about that whole scene. So they got Stefan, they had like gone through his shed. He's kept all these mementos. He's the guy. Then they're like driving away with him. As you said, Kim makes a call. We don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, Stefan's like threatening them.
Yeah.
I know where the bodies are buried. I know everything. I was working with Tony. So guess what? I know about you. I know about you. I know about all this stuff. So if you're going to take me in, just know that I'm going to sing. Otherwise, you can like maybe just drop me off on the side of the road. I'll go my way. You go your way, whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a pull up and Stefan gets shot, dead, and Daniel also gets shot. Not dead.
Yeah, he makes it through. He's pretty wounded, I think, to say the least from this.
But let's just talk like, who did Kim call? Or is it possible that Daniel made that call? I know that was something that was brought up to Daniel to kind of be like, oh, it's really convenient that this guy, Stefan, who could have like, given away so much about you, all of a sudden is killed in the car. Like, oops, oh well, what luck, it is kind of like what luck. But then Daniel at the same time is like, okay, well, I got shot too. Like, it wasn't like it just went by my ear, or I got shot somewhere that it kind of doesn't matter in the long run. Like, oh, it grazed my arm. Oh, look, I got shot too. Okay, well, it didn't really kind of happen like that.
It's very curious, to say the least.
Like, Kim didn't get shot.
No, Kim didn't get shot at all. Like, Kim, okay.
Do you guys think, leave it in the comments, that Kim made a call to have that guy pull up? Let me know. What do you think?
I think so. I think Kim made the call to have all this happen. I don't think he wanted Daniel to die, but I think at the same time, he's really going from this mindset of, okay, I need to just do whatever I can to eliminate any potential collateral damage that could eventually come back onto me. And if Daniel has to go, oh well, I'm about protecting myself first and foremost. Now, what I will say is with those confessions that we were going to hear from Stefan Ash, I think if you are sort of digging around for a possible season 2 that comes out of all this, it's that, okay, what more did Stefan Ash really know? How many more skeletons are in these closets? I mean, are some of these things that Daniel was aware of on some level? Because I think what this show has tried to say to us is that, okay, Daniel did not necessarily know about X, Y, and Z that his fellow colleagues were doing, but at the same time, Daniel willingly did not know because Daniel intentionally turned a blind eye to a lot of it because it was easier.
Listen, Daniel was not innocent in any way, but definitely not just like, oh, I'm just not looking. He was by himself when he did that thing with Patrick, and
Yes.
he knew that what Patrick was saying was repeating a cartoon. Oh yeah, I would hear I'd hear them arguing. Oh, what were they arguing about? Oh, they were arguing about money. Oh, what did you hear them say? And then he's repeating a cartoon. He knew it. That's
Yes.
not turning any kind of blind eye. That's just like manipulating evidence so you can just get what you get and get what you want, because people are putting pressure on you to make this murder on Errol and nobody else.
Yeah, this is, I think, the big surprise of the finale, and it's the thing that they do best. And I don't know how many people out there had their tinfoil hats on and were just like, "It's the cartoon. The cartoon is the
No, not
clue."
me.
No, I didn't either. Like, I like it when I'm surprised. That was really surprising. How I think they put that together and how June figured it out at the same time was really, really effective. And it shows that I think there's a multitude of reasons why Daniel did what he did when it comes to going ahead and just working to incriminate Errol. I think he thought on some level, for once again, a multitude of reasons, that Errol was probably guilty and he was just willing to cut whatever corners he needed to do in order to make that happen in a short amount of time so he could just move on to the next thing or deal with his daughter or deal with whatever else. And that's ultimately, this is the reason why he tried so hard to bury all of this. I think it's not necessarily, at least for me, I don't think he necessarily thought that, okay, people are going to figure out the I'll knock you flat thing because it's so hard to figure out. But
Yeah.
I think he knew that he didn't do a good job, and I think he knew that there was some stuff that would come back on him badly no matter what, and he just did not want that can of worms out there.
It was very interesting about the pen video. That's the thing I was kind of hoping to have a bit better of a resolution on than just like, this is inconclusive. That's fine. It's
Yeah.
inconclusive. What I wanted more explanation on is how did he actually guide Errol through this? Because there was no like, we saw how it all played out according to Daniel's story, of course.
Yeah.
So some of it is true and some of it might not be true. But he basically got him to confess with this recording of Patrick being like, I'll knock you flat, I'll knock you flat. And he was like, oh, you know what? I must have done it then. I must have forgotten. I didn't know. Like, it would have to be just very lucky that Daniel was like, where did you stab her? And then point at the neck, that he was going to pick up to be like, am I supposed to say neck now? Like, well, you're pointing at your neck, but that doesn't necessarily mean neck, like chest. Like, I don't know how that actually worked out as far as he was able to lead him without a prior conversation. Something that was just like, I'll lead you through some of the points of this and I'll take care of Patrick for you.
This is why I'm sitting here with this like C to C minus on execution. Is just like there's one thing that this finale really needed that they did not give us, and then there's one other thing that we didn't need that they chose to give us, and this we needed. I think this would have been the big.
Yes.
It would have been one of the biggest scenes of the entire show, of just like really explaining and understanding how all this came about. Yeah, I think the writers are like, okay, we showed that Errol was under a lot of just duress at the time. He just kept going back to the site. He had all this sort of stuff. I think he wanted it to end. It's like, okay, sure. But that conversation, that moment leading up to that confession, that emotional pull would have been so effective, and the performances would have been so good. And you're banking this whole show on performances. So it's just like, why are we not getting this?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't buy into it that Errol's giving his confession and Daniel is somehow pointing to where what it just didn't fit. It didn't work.
Okay, and speaking of things here that just didn't work.
Okay, I've got my hard hat on now that we're getting into things that don't work.
This is not just the problem I had with the finale, but it's a problem that I've had for really the entirety of this show, is that when it comes to what it's presenting in terms of like the topical discussions it's trying to bring about with Daniel, with about, why is Daniel acting this way? Why did he do this to Errol? And it's speaking to a lot of ideas that we've all been talking about here for years, especially when it comes to, the unconscious nature of what your mind is thinking when you do certain things like arrests. This show was way too heavy-handed, I think, with a lot of it. And in a lot of ways, it was sort of insulting to our collective intelligence, where we should be questioning these things about Daniel, where we should be wondering, okay, is it because of Errol's background? Is it because of Errol, who Errol is? Like, are these the reasons why Daniel arrested him without proper evidence? It's important that we're thinking about these things. It's so much less effective, though, if the show is presenting us with this sort of like paint by numbers exercise of asking these straight up questions, everything with
Yes.
June's husband in the past few episodes. It makes it feel like the creators of the show, feel like we're not smart enough to understand that unless they serve it up to us on a silver platter. And I think that part of it, it is really frustrating because it takes us out of the world of the show and it sort of puts us in this, okay, this is the show trying to directly explain something to us that the characters on the show should also really know and be aware of. Like, June's husband's been married to June for some time. I think everything that they've discussed are things that they already know. And so it's just that issue, it pervades the whole show, and it makes it just so much more frustrating when, if you leave things up to us to discuss, the conversations are going to be a lot more effective and I think a lot more interesting. And it's just so weird that you're going to give us ambiguity about the confession scene,
Mhm.
but you're going to just really just like overhit us time and time again with these other things that we should be able to figure out on our own.
Absolutely. I think it makes it, uh, the audience watching this show is a smart audience.
Yes.
I like to think that we're all smart here,
Yes.
that we can get what they're trying to tell us without just like that conversation with Daniel and June, which is what I'm assuming that you're really
Yeah.
talking about, where it was just like, this, that. It's like, okay, we know what's going on and what the themes are of the show. You guys have shown us in lots of different ways what the themes are of the show and what you're trying to tell us. Do I need Daniel to be like, maybe it's me? It's just like,
Yeah.
stop it. Like, I don't think Daniel really actually even believes that. Like when I heard him talking
Yeah.
and saying this to June, I was like, you don't feel genuine. Like, are you
Yeah.
actually questioning who you are inside to her? Or are you just telling her what you think she wants to hear? Because that's not really what she wants to hear either. Like,
Yeah.
she's trying to get to the bottom of what is going on. And it's not about your guilt feelings on things or your pretend guilt feelings on things. Because you didn't come clean about that I'll knock you
Yeah.
flat thing. You still haven't come clean about it. So your guilt is irrelevant at this
Yeah.
point. You don't feel bad enough to do anything right.
There was just no meaning with any of that because he didn't mean it. I don't think she ever needed to hear it. I mean, we
No.
certainly didn't need to hear it as viewers because it didn't add anything to the discussion. It actually sort of prohibits a lot of the discussion that we could be having after the fact here. It's just that there are elements of that this show could have done much better throughout the season than they did. And it's a shame because I think a lot of the other things that they presented were really, really smart. And I think that's why there's such a weird divide between, okay, we're going to talk about identity issues in this way, but we're
Mhm.
just going to spell everything out because you guys aren't going to think of it otherwise. And then we're going to, tell this intelligent, interesting story over here. Now, we don't know at the time of this recording if this show is going to come back. Like I will speak for me personally and just say, unless they have an extremely, extremely compelling idea,
Mhm.
I don't really know if it's going to come back or if it needs to come back, just because I feel like unless there's some other massive skeleton in Daniel's closet that for whatever reason we didn't find out about this season and that they can explain away in that sort of way, it's just like Daniel still isn't going to face probable punishment or what he deserves in a season 2.
I would like to see it come back for that reason, though.
Okay.
Like the way that it ended, where it felt like June discovered that there's this other skeleton in his closet. This was not a one off. Daniel didn't do this one time and it's just like, okay, I did this one time. I'll never do it again. I never did it before. Stop. You absolutely have done this before. I feel like there's lots of bodies behind him on this stuff. So, could we have a season 2 that's more of June sort of investigating Daniel and trying to find that stuff? Yes. Do I need to see, we saw that Errol got out of jail, he reunited with Patrick, and that stuff was really great.
Yes.
But do we need to see him come back? No, it feels like that story's really wrapped up and it would be going into more of a June versus Daniel, like to figure out how many times has Daniel done stuff like this and how many other people are sitting in jail because Daniel did stuff like this and the wrong person's in there and the right person's still out.
I would watch Peter Capaldi and Cush Jumbo and anything if they wanted to
Yep.
just like, come to my house and do a juggling act. I will sit on the front lawn and watch them and applaud them vociferously. Like I have nope. I would love to see them back again. And I'm glad that Criminal Record existed. I think it's a flawed show in
Yep.
many ways, but I think it did bring to light some important discussions that a lot of shows just frankly aren't having, and they're just too scared to really get into. So I
Yeah.
applaud them for that. But I think let's just see if you guys have another idea. This is the British shows. They tend to take their time with a lot of things, and
Yeah.
sometimes they claim that they're going to maybe do more, and then they never do more. Like Bodyguard with Richard Madden, which feels like it ended 30 years ago, and everybody is still holding out hope for a season 2 that will never come.
Yeah, like if it doesn't come back, I'm not going to be that disappointed. Like you said, like C or C minus. Yeah, C or C plus for me. I really like Kush Jumbo. So, I mean, like, I enjoyed the performances quite a bit. It was just, there was so much like filler stuck to it that just didn't need to be there, like the husband, like, it just felt like, do I need the daughter storyline? It didn't actually lead to much of anything. Like, this show needs to be more focused if it's going to come back for a season 2. And I'm going to give it a chance where I'm going to come back and actually watch a season 2. They need to tighten this up and they need to bring in maybe some more creatives behind it that are just like, okay, we're going to trust that our audience is intelligent enough to have these conversations and understand what's going on without it being like, we need to spell it out every single letter because they won't get it, because we'll get it.
Okay, I've got an idea for season 2,
Okay.
and I'm saying this at the end of the video because people are going to click off halfway through
All
this
right.
idea. All right, so here's what it is. We start with Daniel and June aboard a train that eventually gets taken over by a really terrible person who just so happens to be taken over by somebody who Daniel should have put away years ago, but didn't. In comes Sam Nelson,
okay, you know what?
hijacked
Just see
Criminal
yourself
Record.
out.
Sam Nelson comes in, helps June put away Daniel,
Oh my
saves
God.
the day. We've done it. They are
No,
doing
not we. Just you. Just you.
They are making a hijack season 2, guys.
They absolutely are, and we will be here for Hijack season 2. We covered season 1 as well.
Yes, my
Matt
heart.
just absolutely loves this show. I like it too. It's really fun.
Okay, well, now I'm in a better mood now. I've talked about hijack. I'm feeling better. But no, that's what we got for Criminal Record here and season 1. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, enjoying these discussions. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and click that box right there if you want to watch our most recent Criminal Record review as well. Also, thank you to our patrons. Join our Patreon for exclusive content there. We'll see you guys here next time.